The beginning of Plessy v. Ferguson.
Activist lawyering, or cause lawyering, is where lawyers basically create cases, find plaintiffs to challenge the laws as they are, so that they go to court and can eventually make their way to the Supreme Court to challenge the constitutionality of laws that violate civil rights or other rights. It's done by lawyers across the political spectrum, and it's been done for a very long time. Plessy versus Ferguson is an example of cause lawyering. After the separate car law passed, a group of 18 prominent New Orleans residents met and formed the Citizens Committee of New Orleans to challenge the law. They hired an outspoken attorney who was known for being a radical on the race question named Albion Tourjay. Together they came up with a plan to challenge the Separate Car Act. Tourjay came up with a plan to have a person who looked white but was mixed race violate the law in order to highlight how arbitrary the term colored was. After one failed attempt, they landed on Homer Plessy. Homer Plessy was born in 1862 or 1863, the second of two children in a French-speaking Creole family in New Orleans, Louisiana. He came of age as Louisiana was undoing the progress that was made during the Reconstruction era. He was a shoemaker and an activist, and he was recruited by the Citizens Committee of New Orleans because members had connections with him due to his activist work, and because Homer Plessy self-identified as 7/8 white and 1/8 African and could easily pass as white. The Citizens Committee staged the whole incident with the support of the railway company, which was against the separate car requirements because it required them to have two cars even if each were only half full. On June 7th, 1892, Homer bought himself a first-class ticket on the East Louisiana Railroad traveling from the Press Street Depot in New Orleans to Covington, Louisiana. He took an empty seat in the whites-only car. I read conflicting reports that either the conductor saw him and told him to leave, or that as he gave his ticket to the conductor, Plessy said, "I'm 1/8 black," which the second one makes more sense, I guess, because if he passed easily for white, then he'd probably have to alert someone to his blackness in order for them to know that he was even breaking the law. Unfortunately, there are no photos of Homer Plessy that still exist. Anyway, either way, the conductor told him to leave, he refused, and then a private detective that the Citizens Committee had actually hired arrested Homer and brought him to the authorities, and he was jailed shortly until the Citizens Committee paid his $500 bond the next day. Homer was then convicted by a New Orleans court of violating the separate car law. As a quick aside, the way that this works is he was found guilty of this law in state court, which then gave him grounds to challenge that conviction in federal courts by arguing that the law was unconstitutional, which is a federal question. Does that make sense? So Plessy sued the presiding judge, the Honorable John H. Ferguson, because he was the one who convicted Plessy and therefore, according to Plessy's legal arguments, violated his constitutional rights. And that's how we get the case title, Plessy versus Ferguson. And Plessy's case wound its way through the federal court system until it made it to the Supreme Court in 1896, during which time Jim Crow laws took an even deeper hold in the South and became more tolerated by the North, and even Congress stepped back some of its measures meant to enforce Reconstruction-era policies.
You know how crazy it is to have to buy for a business a separate car because of these and railway cars, and that is why there are stories that the railroad was also involved in this. But you notice that he had to be arrested by somebody in on it, because what I uncovered was basically they were afraid he was going to get arrested for something minor, like loitering. He had to specifically be arrested in order for this case to work its way up for violating the Louisiana rule. It's an intricate story, and I'm all for cause lawyering. But we get the stupid endings.
Yeah. Just a heads up to everybody. I think me and Thea talked about it on the messenger. We were saying a lot of these cases during this time, I should say, was really stupid decisions for us. Now, for them, it worked great. For us, not so good.
What do you mean?
Um, this case, the what was the one we did beforehand, where the guy basically flat out just said that we were property that and government
Why
Dred
don't
has
Scott and
uh,
all those ones.
Judge Scott? That was it. Yes.
thank you. That one, not to give away the ending of this one, but this one, um,
Another sucky ruling. I mean, come on. She gets into it in the very beginning of her video. Like, this is, and I'm gonna have to say it. Sorry, it's the first hour, but this is fucked up justice.